Hello, team. Welcome to the session on Coffee with Prab. And today we have a great personality with us. There's no introduction for this person, but her name is very well known in India for their speaker sessions on the architect side. And she's a cybersecurity architect. Her name is Miss Natalia. She's known for her credit works for the mentoring of cybersecurity sessions for the multiple people, and I have seen a lot of in my network also. Like I have seen a lot of people got the great benefit from Miss Natalia, and she been to the journey of more than 20 plus year of things in the cybersecurity and all that. And the reason of this session is today to sharing. She's going to share the experience on the cybersecurity architect and all that. Thank you so much, ma'am, to have it is pleasure to have us. It's a pleasure to have you uh, you know uh, I'm very excited about this particular session, and it is pleasure for us to have you in this particular session, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, Natalia, like, just need to understand from your side, like, how was the journey about this cybersecurity architect? I'm sure it will be very up and down. A lot of challenges are there. So, is it okay to share your experience about this cybersecurity architect? What is the cybersecurity architect all about?
Um, so first of all, there are different types of cybersecurity architects. So the profession is somewhat complex.
Hmm.
There could be, for example, uh, enterprise cybersecurity architect. That is a person who is responsible for the overall enterprise strategy for uh, security tools and how those tools are interconnected between each other. Could be a cloud cybersecurity architect like myself.
Hmm.
That's the person who is responsible for the tools that are hosted in the cloud or how those tools interact with on-premises hybrid architecture. And there
Okay.
could be also cybersecurity architect for applications who
Wow.
is responsible for architecture in one particular application and works together with the developers
Wow.
to ensure that it's not so the application doesn't contain vulnerabilities that could be exploited. That's just
Okay.
for the basis.
Wow. This basics are basically a great in detail. So, what make you inspired to become a cybersecurity architect? I'm sure everyone has their own journey of starting a cybersecurity. So, what make you inspired to go for the cybersecurity architect? If you're okay with that, to share your experience.
Yes, sure. For me, it was like a natural development. I have
Wow.
started as a consultant.
Hmm.
My scope of focus was identity and access management, web single sign-on. So I was delivering projects for the customers, setting up tools.
Hmm.
And at some point, I realized that uh, what is missing from most of the customers is some kind of strategy. So the identity and access management tool will not sit alone. It will interact. It will change some business processes. So
Wow.
that needs to be documented and it needs to be analyzed what kind of problems can potentially arise and how can we handle them before they arise and cause damage. And that is something that identity and access management architect does. So it's not
Wow.
yet cybersecurity, but because I graduated from university as a specialist in cybersecurity with a master's degree,
Hmm.
at some point I felt like it's too small area for me just to remain in identity and access management. I started looking for positions that would allow me to work with a broader scope. And uh, first, I became an enterprise cybersecurity architect just for one company. Later, I returned to consulting.
Okay.
So now I'm a consultant again, and I work with the cloud technology because it's one of the emerging topics nowadays.
Wow.
Most of the companies are migrating all or at least part of their assets and workloads to the cloud.
That's great. So, there is a lot of assumptions all about, we have a consulting kind of profile. I'm sure, you have seen the big four where we can see a risk consultant, security consultant, building policies, writing policies, doing a risk assessment, vendor risk assessment, application security. So, if I say the role of a cybersecurity architect, So, what is the role of a cybersecurity architect in the organization? And what do you think about this architect profile in next 5 years? Like, do you think so? Like, there will be some new opportunities are there, or what is the vision? If you talk about the cybersecurity architect.
So if we think about consulting, not an in-house position, the role of the architect is to drive the customer's consumption of the technologies in the way that would benefit customers the most.
Great.
If we speak about cybersecurity architect, then the main focus is, of course, the security.
Hmm.
So that the customer can potentially avoid such problems in the future as getting hit by ransomware, um, avoid data leaks, avoid denial of service attacks, and
Hmm.
they can do this with the exact right amount of tools, so they do not being overcharged for the cloud consumption.
Wow. So, any example like you would like to share where this is how the role of architect is fit into the business requirement? Like let's take example of when we onboarding any vendor, we do risk assessment of the vendor. So, any problem situations you have seen where the architect play a very important role in the company? You think so? Okay, yes, it can be done by anyone, but this is the major role of an architect, and this is how he or she fix the solution.
So the architect must ensure that all the parts of the solution are working together. And that is
Wow.
why architect is actually called the architect, because
Yep.
when we are building a house, we
Mm.
need to understand that the door must be at the ground level and not
Exactly.
at the second floor.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
Blueprint.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, formally we do have the door, but it's unusable.
Yeah.
Uh, So the same here. Mm, there are lots of technical specialists who know
Okay.
their respective areas very well, but
Mm-hmm.
there must be somebody who says, "Hey, guys, that is how it's going to work together. That is why we are integrating this module and that module in that particular way."
Wow. That's great. So, just need to understand, Natalia, like, what is the skill is required to become an architect? I'm sure it is not something a cup of tea that, okay, you do tomorrow one training and you become an architect. So I'm sure, because architect is more like a strategic and tactical role, and he's like, or she's like a subject matter expert for the business, or they are the subject matter expert to the operation teams. They are the one who basically act like a bridge, to fill that gap. So, what is the skill is basically required to become an architect?
Um, from the professional profile point of view, I would say architect can be very diverse.
Okay.
So that of course means that the architect knows the technology that they are working with. So
Hmm.
in the case of the cloud, it's networking, storage, authentication, security. Maybe the knowledge is not that deep as any particular technical expert,
Okay.
but at least architect understands how those modules can be integrated.
Okay.
And also it's a role that assumes that you have excellent interpersonal skills, because you have
Okay.
to at some point manage all those experts and ensure that they are communicating between themselves in an efficient way.
Okay. That's great. So, any technical skills? Like I know that the technology talking about technology integration. So, I'm sure for every skill there should be some baseline. Like as I said, when I know about from a pen testing point of view, you need to have an understanding of attacks, concepts, OS, network, and all that. So, any baseline understanding is required if someone want to start their career in architect. What is the steps they should follow to become a good cybersecurity architect? There should
Um,
be any kind of a starting point. Yeah, you would like to recommend?
so I would say the good starting point is to become a security engineer.
Wow. Okay.
Um, uh, so to get the hands-on experience with
Mm.
working with certain cybersecurity tools such as CIM, such as identity and access management, because
Okay.
usually identity and access management is the core of everything.
Exactly. they used to control the subjects, objects, and all that. So that is basically play a important role in the integrations and all that.
So most of the cybersecurity architects I've seen, they come from a strong technical background, from the engineering background, but not necessarily from the developer background.
Okay. So I was saying that, when you're talking about this architect side and all that, as you said about the different requirements, um, so we have this kind of a myth regarding, security plus CEH. These are something like a foundations. And when you said about IDM and all, like CyberArk is there, SailPoint is there. So like as a SailPoint consultant or CyberArk consultant can be the like can be, he can consider or she can consider as a next career can be the architect, or if someone is started with the pen testing, become a security engineer, and later on if you want to move ahead in the architect side, so they can also pursue this career like as an architect. Because very very few companies, not every company has an architect, I'm sure. Not every if you go for the big four or having a technology and all that, they definitely hire architect and all that, because otherwise most of the companies basically outsource this function to third party. So what is your opinion about this particular aspect? Like, it should be like you can start from, like as I said, security engineer is there. So what is your assumption about this profiles? Like what can be the foundation knowledge is required? Yeah.
Depends if the person is starting in consulting at the first place, or they have an in-house position, so they work
Okay.
just for their company for one customers.
Okay.
Uh, in many small companies, there are no official position of architect,
True.
and the easiest way to become one, maybe not officially, but
Exactly.
from the functional duties point of view, is to raise a concern that, hey, we have so many tools and
Uh,
their functionality is duplicated and the company spends too much money on it.
true.
And
True.
I have an idea how to untangle all those complex dependencies. And
True.
usually, when upper management hears about saving money, they will go
They
say,
always
"Go
have a
ahead."
limited
Yes,
budget.
and that would add some architecture experience into your CV that you can later
Oh,
discuss on the interviews. If you work with consulting companies such as, for example, Deloitte or PwC, uh, normally the architect is one of the technical leads on the project.
true. Okay.
So as soon as you discussed with your management that you are ready to become the technical lead, you will communicate with the customer. You will point out the same thing I just discussed for an in-house position, um, and that is how you become an architect. You become architect by learning on the projects actually,
Okay.
because every case is a little bit different from
Different.
another. And of course, those vendor specific certifications, such as from Microsoft, Oracle, or Google, depending which technology you normally interact with, they do help because they help you to structure your knowledge to see, hey,
Okay.
this is the area I'm not very familiar with. For me, it was, for example, networking, because identity and access management is very far from networking. I
True.
had to invest my time into learning this.
True. So you mean to, like, so as I said, do we need to become a technology savvy, something like that? Okay, if I'm good in Microsoft, let me make expertise at a Microsoft, or do I need to make expertise in a Linux or database or programming? Do we really need to have that technical savvy knowledge, or we can have a high level understanding about this and start? We should focus on process, which help us to integrate the thing. So, what is your thoughts on this, Natalia?
I would say that you don't have to be a really deep technical expert.
Great. Okay.
Uh, so you may have some technical knowledge from your past background, but it's just impossible to to know everything at the level 400, as the companies say.
Okay.
So it's just important to understand what similarities between different vendor products, let's say AWS managed database and Google managed database. If the
True.
customer asks how can we migrate,
I will agree. Yeah.
So you can present some kind of blueprint, but then of course it's up to database technical experts to come and do the actual work according to your
Mhm.
blueprint.
So, do you recommend any books to improve the knowledge in the architect side? Like, normally, like as I can see you have seen a lot of certifications in information security and all that. I'm sure you have referred some books. So, definitely to have a skill upgrade. So, Natalia, do you recommend any books that the user should view, read, and all that? Those who are watching this video and they are aspiring architects. They want to become an architect. So, do you wish to recommend any books to them that they should read, they should study, or any YouTube channel?
The issue with printed books is they are usually a bit obsolete at the time when they leave
I've noticed.
printing
Yeah, I've seen
house.
that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of old books are there, but there's no new trend is coming. The same, they just bringing a risk management, information security process. They're just copying the IC square contents, the SSP, and all. I haven't seen the new books, which is basically focusing on the core cybersecurity architect. They're just talking about same and same again, the security program, security process, and that's something create a lot of myth in the market about this architect profile. But any old book you would like to recommend, or if you want to suggest, it's up to you.
So some books that are more or less up to date is books about frameworks.
Okay.
So the most famous is TOGAF,
Wow.
architecture framework.
Enterprise architecture. Yeah.
Yes, and recently there has been also security specific architecture framework, which is called SAPSA. So if
SAPSA. Yeah.
one wants to be really formal, which is important for Big Four, I would
Hmm.
recommend the digging into those frameworks. Because not all
Okay.
customers require any strict framework. Uh, it really depends on their maturity.
Okay. So if I ask you this question, Dalia, like, how's the day of a cybersecurity architect spent in the company? So how's your day normally goes in the company as a cybersecurity architect? Normally what happens in the operations, you have to work 24 into 7, consulting depending upon the project. So if I talk about a day in a life about a cybersecurity architect in the organization, so how we spend, like how's the architect life in the company? Is it always like a kind of a attack always, yes, 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 we have to complete, or you guys follow any process?
So in consulting, it depends on the phase of the project or projects.
Okay.
In the initial stage of the project, there could be, let's say, lots of meetings. So you
Okay.
sit in the meetings for almost entire working day,
Wow.
and the rest of the time you are making notes because you
Notes.
understand you will just forget.
Minutes of meeting. Yeah.
Uh, Yes, so after all the meetings are conducted and all the requirements are collected, then you present the customer with some kind of slides because they would like to have this blueprint. They would have to get the North Star, how their systems will develop in the next 6 to 8 months.
True. Hmm.
And then finally, you communicate with the implementation team to ensure that they understood your blueprint correctly.
Wow. So, like normally, how's the role of cybersecurity architect is with CISO? Like, because sometimes what happens, some say CISO report to architect or architect report to CISO. So, how's the relation between the architect and CISO in the company? If you see that things, because you architect is the one who designed the blueprint, help us to integrate the process and all that. So, any point of time you feel okay, CISO or their skills are overseeding the architect profiles. So how's your perspective about the relation between the architect and CISO?
Again, depends if we speak about consultant architect,
Hmm.
which is external to the company, or we speak about in-house where both employees are uh, salaried together.
Okay.
So if it's a consultant, then the role of architect is just to interview CISO and to guide CISO to
Ah,
point some potential issues or some budgeting concerns, or to help CISO to present the budget to the upper management.
oh, that's
If
great.
if both people are employed by the same company, it is very likely that they actually share the same budget. And
Okay.
here comes a little bit of politics. So
That's true. That's happened sometime. Yeah.
um, yes, but in fact, architect can also help CISO in that case uh, to do more for less, so to say. So present some kind of optimized budget with the tools that the company has or is planning to acquire.
Okay. That's great. So is he like architect? Is the architect involved in building policies or building processes in the company, or he just oversight or she just oversight this process, policies, and everything? Because why I'm asking this, because I'm also did my ISSAP, where their pointers are more focused on the policies and all that. But when I refer the subset document, autograph, and all that, I haven't seen anything related to policies and all that. So is the architect also involved in building policy for the companies or building a strategic documents and all that, or they just act like a consultant for the CISO or for the
Uh,
business?
so cloud consultant and
Mhm.
application consultant usually do not build any
Yeah,
policies.
yeah.
We speak about enterprise architect. They are usually responsible for building frameworks for the
Mhm.
company where all the tools would fit.
True.
Uh, I was once involved into the development of the cloud cybersecurity framework for the entire enterprise, which
Okay.
means that whenever a new cloud application is onboarded or a new cloud vendor, they must adhere to certain requirements. If they do not um, adhere to those requirements, they're simply not onboarded because a
Okay.
CISO has developed such policy.
Okay.
The CISO says, okay, whatever architect says is a requirement must be a
Hmm.
requirement.
Oh wow. So it means like architect has that authority that okay, if the requirement is coming from architect, it means it's already verified and validated, and we must adhere to that requirement. But will it be any kind of arguments happen, Natalia? Have you seen such kind of a phases where the arguments happen regarding okay, this is something is a requirement we have, this is we need to integrate, or sometimes the arguments come from business or security. As you are part of a cybersecurity, but have you faced any kind of arguments? And if you face the argument, how you basically overcome those challenges? Like I'm sure 100% security, 100% risk cannot be mitigated or removed. Same like 100% integration is not possible in any process. So how you handle that challenge if you face any challenge like that?
Yes, of course that happens. So that is why architect must start with collecting requirements of business to
Hmm.
ensure that nothing that is proposed in the framework or set of recommendation is a showstopper from the business point of view.
Great.
Uh, because, for example, many companies on one hand are concerned that their information will go into the cloud where they have somewhat less control over their data.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, on the other hand, if the company is developing software, they would like to have this flexibility on the cloud to allow their developers work more efficiently, build new releases faster, uh,
True.
and use up-to-date tools.
And they are
Uh,
also focusing on their capex and opex cost. Also, the cost is also the factor they consider. Governance, risk compliance. Sometimes they supersede this to the technologies and all that. That I've noticed. I don't know whether it is true or not.
yes, that is also true.
Okay.
So there could be, for example, an argument from the developers when they want to use some tool, but from the architecture analysis point of view, you see this tool doesn't fit into the framework.
True.
And usually you have to work with the developers to ensure that either they use some analog of this tool or they change the way how they work
Wow.
with this tool to ensure that it is still compliant, it is still within framework.
That's really great. So, Nale, I will just take you another 5 minutes if you're okay with that. Just need to understand the high level summary. If I join as an architect in any company, okay. So how the process works, like from scratch. If you can able to share us a high level example, like when we go for the pen testing, the first step is planning, scoping, then pen testing, preparing a report. So overall, if I say summary in 5 minutes maximum, so how architect works in the company, how the project works with the architect, if it okay with you.
Yes, sure. So,
Thank you.
first of all, identifying stakeholders,
Great. Okay.
identifying business requirements, identifying technologies, because there could be more than one tool that would do the same. So, and we need to select one. Uh, Identifying missing knowledge. If we develop everything in-house, we need to make sure that we have specialists or we need to subcontractors somebody, and working with top management to forms of budget.
That's great.
And after that, it is possible to draft a blueprint and to communicate with the implementation team on
Okay.
how this blueprint should be actually brought into life.
So architect
If
need to be good in documentations also, meanwhile he should be
yes,
good in documentation, strong documentations.
tons of documentations, tons of diagrams. So
Wow.
architect would need at least one external monitor or maybe two.
Oh, like we have seen in a lot of hacking movies and all that, so architect also required the similar kind of a platform. So Natalia
Yes, not
every
for
day in
the
the morning.
code. Yeah, every day in the morning.
Oh, wow. But sometimes you feel like frustrated, okay, seeing so many monitors, because and some people like loves to do that, because in my case I'm using multiple monitors to do my multitasking thing. So architect need to be a lot of creative, right? Because a lot of design, diagrams, integration, one small mistake, boom, it will be a trouble for the entire project. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think you are the guys who are the foundation stone, or you can say a, a major break in entire project. Because if you're giving a wrong statements, if you're giving a wrong requirement, it will impact the entire project. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I usually there are so many discussions involved with setting up a blueprint. Most of
Okay.
those obvious errors are identified.
Okay.
Um, but it could be that the architect underestimated some technology or didn't figure out that there is currently a limitation, and the customer has to send an enhancement request to the vendor, and that usually takes several months to complete.
That's great. That's really the things which is basically help us to drive. So I understand that. So ma'am, after that particular thing, what is the next thing, like after having a implementation done and all that, then what is the next step, like if the architect go for it?
So the IT infrastructure of the company and cybersecurity infrastructure in particular, it's never stands on one place because there are new
Okay.
vulnerabilities being identified, the technologies are deprecated, uh, and it is important to stay on the edge of the things and
Okay.
be proactive and say, hey, now we are replacing this module with that module to address the new risks that was not there when the original blueprint was developed.
Okay.
So it's important to follow the news to see what is a new vulnerability, and if it's affecting your architecture, and to be in communication with CISO uh, to see what can be done in the time and budget constraints.
Okay. So is there a role of architect is same like when you deal with the cloud and on-prem, or do you find any difference in the way of governance and the way of operations and all that?
So usually with the cloud, depending on the architecture, the customer has less possibilities to influence what components are there.
Okay.
If we speak about software as a service, there is not that much you can do. You only
Exactly. We have very limited
responsible,
visibility.
yeah, for your data. So everything you can do, if you are not happy with a new version of the software, you just take your data away and
Exactly.
put it into some other software. If there is a platform as a service, mm, also not that much you can do. Infrastructure as a service, yes, you can select another operating system for your virtual machine or for your container. The on-premise, you have full control.
Yeah.
But
That's good.
usually, as an architect, I'm not involved into any kind of hardware choices.
Yeah. That's true.
So the main difference between on-premise and cloud is um, how many components you have to have overlooked at.
That's great. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, in the SaaS, we have a very limited visibility, but in the IaaS, we have a more visibility. So according to that, we are driving the operations and all that. But it is really great, Natalia. Like, this is for me. I really found this session is very informative, to be frank, and I was not aware about some of the pointers. And thanks for enlighten those topics in this particular session. And I'm sure this video will be very useful, because I haven't seen any video in which they're covering the architect part and all that. So I'm sure this video will be a great turning point for the people who wish to make the career in architect and all that, Natalia. And I know it's very early morning, and taking out the time in a weekday, it's always a challenge. But I really appreciate your efforts, and thank you from my side that okay, you're able to take out your time from your operations and all that for this particular session. To be frank, when I sent a message, I was not expecting, team, that we'll get a reply. But the way Natalia has handled this, and she was so supportive, this is show the humanity, so humble you are, Natalia. And I'm sure I will looking forward for more sessions from your side for the subscribers. And I'm sure this week, because I have a lot of visibility in US market and Europe market also, so I'm sure this video will give that maximum reach. And this will be the very important video for them who looking for a transformations from their IT to cyber architect, or cybersecurity to cybersecurity architecture. Really, I'm really thankful, Natalia, for this particular session. You're able to take the time for us.
Thank you for the invitation and for the chance for me to share my knowledge and insights into the profession. I really hope it will be helpful. And if there would be any subsequent questions, I can also try and answer them.
So, is it
If
okay
there will
to
be
is
more
it is
questions,
it is it is it
sorry.
okay to share your LinkedIn profile in a description box? So, if someone want to reach out to you for any kind of support and all that, so is it okay to share your LinkedIn profile link in the description box of the YouTube?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So, team, actually, for your information, Natalia, do a lot of mentoring on cybersecurity. Correct me if I'm wrong, Natalia, because I've seen in the past you did a lot of mentoring on cybersecurity. So, if you're looking for some kind of a mentoring on cybersecurity, this is the right person, Miss Natalia. The way she carried the experience, the way she explaining the things for the cybersecurity, I'm sure it can be very useful. And you can see in the description box where I have shared the profile of Natalia, and you can reach out to her directly for any kind of a support. Thank you. Thanks, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank
Anything
you.
you wish to share on the last point, or before finishing up this video? Any last pointer to the subscribers or clients or the future students who want to, or the aspiring architect? Any last thing you want to say on a good note?
I would say that cybersecurity architect is a very important role, and even if your current company doesn't see the importance of it, don't lose hope, don't lose your aspiration. You will, if you want to make it into architects, you will make it.
That's a very good point that Natalia has said, and it is a very positive point also. But I'm sure when there is a will, you can make it. And with the limited resource or more resources, Natalia is there. They can she can support you for all the things which you required in an architect. So this is all from my side, team. Thank you for watching this video.